Okay.
Jacoby Saunders.
Oh,
He loves it here.
oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
We have a lot
He
going
was
on.
just here last week, matter of
Okay.
fact.
Well, I then comes on a day I don't come back here usually.
Yeah.
A couple days.
But
Well, good. Make sure he knows about our summer reading program. We have a lot of going on this summer, and if he's of school age, then we have special programs just for that age.
No, he's getting out of preschool.
Oh,
He's
Oh,
5,
okay.
just turned
Okay.
5.
okay.
Yeah, but he loves to come here to the library.
That's what we like to hear.
He loves to read.
Okay.
He can't read yet, just some, but
Yeah, but we have books.
because he just turned 5.
Mhm.
But he likes to come here. Yeah, she had a thing in a book. He brought him to my house tonight. He come over and she had a thing, that.
Oh, Thousand
all that stuff.
Oh, the sugar time. Yeah, that's our summer reading program.
How come you ain't got the upper part of the state?
Huh?
How come you got the upper part of the state?
Because we only cover the 618 area.
Chicago's probably fine then.
Yeah.
Actually, there's been reports up in Chicago for the past 2 years of the way they put it, a winged humanoid, sort of like an angel with all black, but it looks like an angel flying around up around Chicago, around what's the name of the tower there? What's the name of the tower?
Sears Tower.
Sears Tower. They've been seeing it flying around Sears Tower a whole lot, and all around then all the boroughs around Chicago land.
I get those love inspired. They're good, clean Christian novels.
We do accept book donations, but if we don't, we might not put them on our shelves. We might put them in our book shelves. And so we're gonna have a book shelf, so if that's okay. Then yeah.
Well, I get them new 6 every month.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I don't know. Sometimes if the new ones, if they're newer, she might put them out. But a lot of times we usually put them in the book shelf, especially if we already have copies of yours.
Yeah.
Not ready, I guess. Well, if anybody comes in the door, just tell them to find a
5 till.
seat. 5 till?
I'll give them a few more minutes.
Okay.
I don't know how long I'll last with this headache.
Oh no.
Get home, I'll come back to your place. I'll give you a neck massage, help get your headache go away.
You can try it. Last time you had a big crowd here.
Yeah, and I've been promoting the tar out of it too.
Well, I know there are several people who said they were coming.
Yeah, Bryce Edwards is supposed to come.
Oh, good.
That's good, too pretty.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, it's not only that. I didn't think that all the graduations would be going on tonight.
that's
Johnson
right.
City's got their graduation tonight.
Oh gosh, yes.
Who does?
Johnson City.
I didn't think
I asked Watts if he was.
Orchard's got theirs tonight.
No, it was last night. They always have theirs on Thursday, remember?
You're right.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, and all the colleges.
Yeah.
His mommy graduates.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we gotta leave early.
Yeah, am I riding with you guys or am I riding
We're
with?
all riding together. She said there was no sense in driving 2 vehicles.
We can ride back.
Just take 37 up there. Don't even try to get on 57.
She says that she knows the way to go, so I'm just gonna drive.
We're gonna ride with her probably.
Huh?
Probably ride with her.
Huh?
What?
You crazy or something? I ain't riding with her. I want to get there alive. See, I got a bunch of people already watching. I got 8 people. I'm broadcasting that live tonight, too. Don't worry, you ain't gonna get your face seen. Got a lot of people already watching.
Somebody else?
Is it live on Facebook?
Yeah.
Right on.
Turn around. Everything's in reverse. It says. Let's see, is that better?
You're over it. It's hard to see.
Well, if I can get this thing set up straight. Can you check that camera, see if it's lined up? I'm live on my personal Facebook. I'm not live through the event page. Here, I'll show you.
It looks like it to. Whoa, sorry.
You can see the.
There we go. this right here so that way that thing doesn't slide. There we go. I'm afraid he's gonna try to come up and good. He knows how goosey I am, and he always tries to goose me every time he can.
If you don't go, it's live.
Gosh. Well, that truck ain't drinking gas
Well, no wonder.
like it did.
Run on 3 cylinders.
No, 5.
You need that plug wires and it'll really be good.
Yeah.
Who took that picture of him?
I took it.
You took it?
Yeah. Took it down to Garden of the Gods. Huh?
I thought I seen that at post office.
Ha ha.
Like the girl on his way.
I used to.
You used to draw.
I used to draw all the time until my teacher that I had in high school killed art for me.
I like that.
Well, it's, I used to. It's just then the teacher I had, she just basically just killed it for me. I had no drive for it whatsoever. You couldn't be creative in her class. You always had to do everything out of a book.
That's why his mommy, when she's young, went to John A. And she was trying to get a degree in music, and that teacher over there said, "You don't put your hands right." And she'd had lessons since she'd been like 6 years old. "You don't put your hands right. You don't do this right." And it really disgusted her. So she quit.
Okay, 6 o'clock. We'll start.
Looks like this is your crowd.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for coming out. We had an event like this last year, and it had a pretty good turnout and everything, and a lot of people learned, and all that. It got the word out, spreading awareness. You know that something could exist in the world today. Like I said, I say a lot of times, before Christopher Columbus, North America didn't exist. It was a straight shot from Spain to China and India. Until Copernicus and Galileo, everything revolved around the Earth and not the sun. And everybody thought they was crazy. And until Magellan circumnavigated the globe, the Earth was flat. So, like I always tell people, don't be so close-minded to go and actually keep an open mind on it whenever it comes to, you know, certain things might still exist in today's world. So,
Somebody else coming.
okay. Title of my lecture is Bigfoot in Southern Illinois. It's part of the Southern Illinois lecture series by the Southern Illinois Monster Hunters. I am Zach Sterrick. I am the team leader and co-founder of the Southern Illinois Monster Hunters, founded in 2015 right here in Crab Orchard, Illinois, where we're based out of. And we've been going pretty headlong and pretty strong now. Picked up quite the following since we were founded. Started off with 4 of us, the founding members, with a couple of my friends I went to school with, my mother and my brother, and then we picked up a couple more along the way. Let's see, who am I? Like I said, I'm team leader and co-founder of the Southern Illinois Monster Hunters, established in 2015. I am a 14-year researcher of cryptid researchers and paranormal phenomenon. I had my first encounter with what I believe to have been a Sasquatch whenever I was 9 years old in Randolph County, Illinois. I didn't see it, but I heard it. I didn't have my first face-to-face encounter until 10 years later whenever I was 19, 20 years old. And I'm currently 24 now. I had my first encounter when I was 9 years old in Randolph County. I was born and raised in a little community called Attila, which is just right up the road here. Born and raised on a cattle farm. Don't like being in the city. I prefer to be in the woods. It's my home. And I founded the SIMH with my mother, my brother, my cousin, and my best friend, Gunnar Galloway, me, and my cousin John Stevens. My mother and my brother asked not to be shown. Of course, they couldn't be here tonight. They had prior engagements. What is Bigfoot? Other names, there's been reports of Bigfoot on every continent with the exception of Antarctica. And depending on the culture, the indigenous people, or the different lingos around the world, their names vary. For example, Yowie, Skookum, Oma, Yeti, Yaren, Bushman, Hairy Man, Wendigo, Stonish Giant, Wild Man, Shadow Man, Monkey Man, Ukamar, Almasty, and one that I forgot, the Nandi Barum. Descriptions of Bigfoot vary from location and culture, size, hair color, habits, and appearance vary around the world. But they all have a couple things in common of an upright, hairy creature, anywhere from 7 to 10 feet tall, from 400 to 1,000 pounds. Hair color changes in various climates and regions around the world. They've been reported in black, gray, red, blondish color, brown, and white even. This picture here is one of the most famous photographs ever taken of a Bigfoot. It comes from the famed Patterson Gimlin footage that was filmed on October 20th, 1967 in Bluff Creek, California by Roger Patterson and a good personal friend of mine now, Bob Gimlin. I've spoke with Bob Gimlin a time or two, and his story never wavers. And so this is one of the most disputed and debated photographs of a Bigfoot in existence. If you can tell, it's they've labeled it Patty, and they believe it to be a female because of the mammary glands, the breasts on it. You can see a nose, you can see the eyes, the lips, you can see the ribs and the muscles, how it swings its arms. There was a guy that actually did a ratio comparison of the length of the limbs, the legs and the arms, difference in ratio. Compared to us humans, it's like a 40% ratio difference in our arm length. With Patty, it was 20%. And they said Patty was, if I'm quoting Bob Gimlin right, he said that Patty was about 7 foot 4 3/4 inches, I believe they estimated by the size of the prints. He said it weighed about 400 pounds whenever he saw it, but the depth of the prints that went into the sandbar that it was seen walking across whenever they filmed it was very deep, and they gauged it up around 800 to 900 pound mark. The earliest Bigfoot report in Illinois was in Effingham in 1912. A woman named Beulah Schroet reported that her and her brothers often spotted huge hairy creatures near their home in Effingham. This may have been the first sighting in Illinois, but it was not the first one in the Great Lakes region. As far as back as 1839, witnesses in Michigan City, Indiana were reporting a wild child, quote unquote, near Fish Lake. Today we would call such a creature Bigfoot. Now this one, the first report of Bigfoot in Illinois, it's a toss-up. You'll hear people say it was Centerville, Illinois, up by St. Louis, and then you'll hear it was Effingham. The most solid evidence of the first Bigfoot report in Illinois that I have found was in 1912 in Effingham. Some of the most famous Bigfoot of southern Illinois, like I found early on in my research, Bigfoot is not just going to be in the Himalayan mountains on the other side of the world. They're usually going to be right where you're at. Some of the most famous ones from southern Illinois, the Big Muddy Monster of Murfreesboro that come out of the Big Muddy River back in the 70s. The Red Man of Anna, Illinois, that's just been reported here in the last 4 years, roaming around the area of Anna Jonesboro in Union County. The Tuttle Bottoms Monster of Harrisburg, Illinois, outside of it's a little area outside of a little borough called Doris Heights. The Tuttle Bottoms Monster was reported from the 60s all the way up till the turn of the century. Over 50 reports was turned in. They varied on what the reports of the description of the Tuttle Bottoms Monster was. Some people said it was a giant anteater that had a mouth on it like an alligator that opened up instead of a tongue. Some said it was a Bigfoot. A local researcher from the Little Egypt Ghost Society named Bruce Klein had an encounter with what he believed was the Tuttle Bottoms monster, and he said it looked like a pterodactyl, a dinosaur, that chased his car through Tuttle Bottoms all the way back to Raleigh Blacktop. And then the Hamp Mine monster of Hardin County. The Hamp Mine was an old strip mine that was in Hardin County, close to Elizabethtown, Cave and Rock area. Reports of this creature lurking around the mine happened for a couple months until a deputy sheriff pursued the creature, and it leapt down into the pit, the gravel pit of it, the mine, and he shined his light down into the gravel pit, and it was nowhere to be seen amongst the equipment. Sightings went and ceased shortly after that. It still is yet to be debunked whether or not if it was an actual creature, if it was a hoax. But there's still reports of Bigfoot in the Shawnee National Forest to this day. How Bigfoot got to America. There's a theory that is shared in the Bigfoot community that I agree on myself. Of course, the earliest reports of Bigfoot in history come from Tibet and China, all across Asia. As wildlife migrated from Eurasia to North America, Bigfoot, like ancient man, followed the food. It would come across back whenever during the Ice Age, there was a land bridge between Russia and what is now modern-day Alaska. It was called the Bering Sea Land Bridge. Following, like I said, Bigfoot was like modern man. It was following the food because there was the great migration coming across there. Saber-tooth, mammoths, all kinds of wildlife at the time was moving on to expand, with their breeding populations to expand. And then as the sea level rose, as the ice caps melted, it made the land bridge sank and the sea levels rose. Bigfoot as a species was forced to set up home in North America. And over time, they spread south. There's been reports of Bigfoot in Alaska, all the provinces of Canada, all North America with the exception of Hawaii, all of the provinces of Mexico, and all of the provinces in South America. Basically from Alaska to Chile, there's been Bigfoot reports, and they all have different names, whether it's the Thunder Giant, the Ohio Grass Man, the Skookum, the Wood Booger, Sasquatch. It varies upon region. A theory on how Bigfoot showed up in Illinois. There's the theory amongst us researchers that a Bigfoot, like any other wildlife, will follow waterways. It's a path of least resistance. You got food and you have water right there at your disposal and plenty of shelter to go and stay out of sight from prying eyes. As you see right here, the Ohio River conjoins here at Alexander County with the Missouri-Illinois state line, and it merges with Mississippi, and it feeds out of Pennsylvania. And then along the Ohio River, you got all of these creeks and these other little rivers that feed into it. Bigfoot would possibly use those all as travel routes, and of course most reports of Bigfoot have not been very far from a water source, a big water source, lakes, creeks, rivers, what have you. Mainly I believe that Bigfoot is omnivorous, and so it would feed on fish, vegetation, red meat like deer, bear, what have you. So it would make sense for a Bigfoot to stay near a water source, because where the water is, that's where all the food's going to be. That makes up a Bigfoot's diet. And not only that, you got all of the fertile soils for vegetation like crops, beans, corn, even wild berries that grow right there in the very fertile ground along the rivers. Where did Illinois place in 2018 according to the BFRO, which is the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization that was established in 1995. As of 2017, Illinois stayed was placed at number 2. And currently, as of 2019, in 2018, according to my colleague and my good friend Amy Boo from Ohio, Illinois came in number 4 of all the states, falling in behind Washington, Kentucky, Ohio, and Florida. Currently now it sits at number 5, but whenever I made this presentation, it was sitting at number 4. Evidence that I've found in southern Illinois, the theory behind this, if you can see it, it's what we call a tree structure or a teepee. I've had some people that I've actually showed teepees out in my research areas. They honestly don't know what to think. I showed you one. The theory behind these teepee structures is that it is a territory marker, and the bigger the structure, the bigger the alpha that made it. This structure I found on a farm here in Williamson County that was measured at 12 foot at the very peak. So I'm 5'9". I was standing there on the inside of that structure with my arm up, and I still was not even nowhere near reaching the top of it. The branches that was used to build this stood at anywhere from 13 to 15 feet long, and it was all built up around a sapling that come and it bowed over, and it was built up and interwoven in the branches like a Native American teepee would be. Other evidence that I found here in southern Illinois is this foot track that I found here in the Williamson County bottoms, and it's in an undisclosed location that I frequent in my research. This track I found, it was in a creek bank on a sandstone bar in the middle of a creek. I measured it at 18 inches long, 10 inches across the top of the foot, and 8 inches across the heel, and it sat approximately 2 inches deep into the sandstone. And if anybody walked in the creeks, even a good sized man ain't gonna go that far in a very packed terrain. And it's like I always say, if you're gonna find any kind of tracks, and especially here in southern Illinois, you got all these hills, you've got the rock no more than anywhere from 6 inches to a foot up underneath the soil, you're gonna have rock. The best places you're gonna find evidence of Bigfoot is along creeks, because that's where deer, coons, possums, rabbits, they all come to drink, and the grass will usually be very green around there for them to pick. So you're going to have a better chance of finding evidence of Bigfoot walking along a creek, because not only that, it's wide open, a path of least resistance, like a game trail. Further evidence that I found here in southern Illinois, I did an experiment back in 2016 with my team. It was the gifting lure experiment. We took a mesh fishing basket and we put Golden Delicious apples inside of it. We hung it up in the tree. Then there was no lock, there was no camera, the mesh was all see-through where you could see the apples and you could smell the aroma that they put off. We left them out there for about 2 or 3 weeks. 2 weeks. And I would frequently check it to see, if there was any kind of messing around with the lure. If any of the apples were missing, I kept a count of 5 apples throughout the duration of the time. And as you see here in these 2 pictures, we had apples strewn around in the forks of trees and hollowed out stumps, even scattered across on the ground. Just enough to support any kind of wildlife that wanted to come in there. But we set the fishing basket, because it's metal. It has tacks in there that holds the links together. The mesh, hair would have to go and be caught on that thing if it was going to reach in to the basket to get the apples and pull its arm out. Hair was going to get caught. That's the reason we chose to use the fishing basket. Well, 2 weeks later, I come in one afternoon after work into the area, and that same tree, and the tree was about as big around as a softball, and it was bent completely over like this and was pinned underneath a log. And the basket was laying flat on the ground. I tried to do the same style of bend with another tree that was close by, and I'm stronger than an ox. I'm very strong, have been all my life. I couldn't even get that thing to budge. So whatever bent this tree had to have ungodly upper body strength and grip strength to power that thing over and then pick up that down tree, which by the way was a hickory tree, to go and pin it up underneath of that tree. Which goes to show you how much immense power these creatures have. There's been actually reports of these things coming up and pushing on trucks and campers, running into the side of campers, making whole cabins and houses and trailers shake. That's just, this would be, to witness this is only not even the tip of the iceberg, basically at the foot of the iceberg on the amount of power these creatures possess. Further evidence that I have found in southern Illinois is the tree in a tree. I found this on a farm in southern Illinois. Let's see, this is about a year ago that I found this, and I recently returned to the area of where this tree was. The tree approximately is 20 to 25 feet long, and it was sitting up and uprooted with the root ball up straight in the air, and it was sitting in the fork of a little sapling. The sapling was alive and well. This tree had been either uprooted or the roots had been broke off and had been carried, because I found no drag marks leading up to this place. As you can see, it was before spring had sprung, nothing was blooming. I went to just to go and mosey around to see what I could find. The next couple slides are from the same area. I went and I tried to budge the tree that was sitting up in the fork of the tree, and I couldn't even get it up to move it. And I estimated that to be weighing in around, with the root ball on the end of it, approximately 350 to 400 pounds on an estimate. I've returned here this last weekend, and the termites had hit that tree that was sitting in the tree very hard. It had a lot of rot to it. The stump that's here at the top end had broke off and it was laying on the ground, but the majority of the tree was still sitting in the fork of the tree. Further evidence is the biggest tree bin that I have ever found. I found this in the same area, just up the trail from the tree sitting in a tree. This tree here I estimated to be around 25 to 30 feet tall, still rooted, still able to bear leaves, and it was bent over and set up underneath another piece of a deadfall. I took pictures of it at different angles to show you how big of the arc it is, and that tree was about as big around, I want to say, as a coffee can whenever I found it. It was undoubtedly, it was fresh and everything, because there was no split in the bark or in the fibers of the wood of the tree. It was still fairly intact. I checked this same area this last Saturday, and it was still in the same spot, with no rot to it, still able to produce leaves. A theory behind tree bins, or as we call them, arches. The theory goes many different ways. Some believe it to be a trail marker or a directional tool to find a water or food source. I believe it's a little bit of both, to be honest, because usually the way that they're bent over is usually the same way that all the wildlife will be traveling, and usually the way they're bent over, it's pointing in the direction of a water source. The big bin that I just showed you was pointing towards a cornfield that they go and they sow corn in every single year. That would be a good food source, and not only that, A lot of people believe that they use cornfields as a type of travel corridor. The corn gets up 10 feet tall, they could run through that thing all day long and they would not be seen. Basically, ultimate hide and seek. And you know, if you've ever got lost in a cornfield, you know you could run past someone in the dark, and it sounds like you could be 2 foot away from them or 10 feet away from them. It sounds like they're right there, but you wouldn't see them because it would grow so thick. But that's the thing whenever it comes to tree bends or the arches. These here that I found was pointing towards a very big creek that holds water. I found a lot of wildlife activity around that creek. I found coon tracks, possum tracks, deer tracks, even bird tracks. They found tracks from a white heron in that area. Other evidence that I found this in Ferncliff State Park last year in May 16th of 2018 on a routine check of my research area in Johnson County in Ferncliff State Park. These 3 tracks was up on top of Round Bluff at mile marker 5 on the trail at the very top along this cliff. And they was, as you can see, they was very fairly spaced out. The trackway I found on the crest of Round Bluff, 3 tracks found along a dirt path, all measured 13 inches long, 7.5 across the top of the foot, and 6 inches across the heel. And the tracks, each of them were 4 feet apart. So 12, 24, 30, 48 inches in between each track, and I measured them from the heel to the toe of the next print. I used baby powder to go and attempt to highlight a lot of the details, like the toes, the prints where the mid-tarsal break was. Where, for example, whenever you're talking about a mid-tarsal break, how we walk, when you put your foot down and it comes down, that bend right there in your foot is what they would classify as a mid-tarsal break. You can see it. Unfortunately, I didn't have no casting material with me. It was right there in the dirt, and there was very loose dirt. As you can see, rock up underneath the dirt, moss. But this was the best way that I knew at the time to go and actually document them. Now this one has got me a lot of scrutiny over the past couple years. Possible Bigfoot photo taken by me in late 2017. I took this on a farm that I work on periodically here in Williamson County. I was driving on an ATV trail on the farm, just doing a routine fence check, and I go out whenever I'm out, and you know, anybody that goes out, you like to take pictures of just the scenery, just for the memory of it, so that way you can look back at it. I was just taking random pictures of the tree line. That little structure there was not built by Bigfoot. It was part of a turkey blind that I'd built for turkey season, and I would stretch camouflage mesh burlap across the front of it, and I was just using that tree mock-up to go and break up my silhouette. The subject appears to be 75 feet away from where I took the photograph. I didn't realize it was in the photo until I looked at it a couple days later, and a friend of mine, researcher Albert Amaya, found the subject in the photograph. Well, as the subject sees right here, you can see the silhouette of the body, the look of a head, the shoulders, it looks like a bend in the elbow, the buttocks, the leg, like it was walking away, and I was just seeing the profile of the creature. Next slide. This past November, I was benefited to be a part of the Small Town, Illinois documentary by the Southern Illinois University of Carbondale. Adam Holbrook, he met me, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. He met me here back in October at a local lecture that was given by Bruce Klein of the Little Egypt Ghost Society, and I invited him to come out to one of my research areas for me to take him on a night hunt. because I believe that Bigfoot being primarily nocturnal, you'd have a better chance of having an encounter with them at night. Just some of the pictures that was taken that night and at the gala that I was specially invited to, some of the evidence that I donated to them for them to use for displays. There is, in this next slide, I'll talk a little bit about this one. There's a thing called gifting or habituation that some researchers do with Bigfoot, that they go and they leave like, perfect example, one of my colleagues, Greg Yost, the Indiana Squatch Band from Jeffersonville, Indiana. Every time he's out in the woods, he'll take a whole cooked chicken and some apples or some carrots, and he'll leave them in a little heating tray, and he'll leave them on this thing he calls the gifting stump. And he'll come back and it'll all be gone the next day or the next 2 days. So I started hearing a lot of other people that I'm real close with in the Bigfoot community as researchers that are actually going out and they're leaving like tobacco, apples, fruits and vegetables, even just leaving water out there as a sort of like a peace offering. And it goes back to what the Native Americans, they held everything in nature in high regards, and they seen it all as part of being a spiritual connection. So I started doing, leaving a little peace offering. I chew red man tobacco, and I'll leave this red man tobacco at this place I call the grandfather tree that's in my main research area. It's 2 trees growing out of the same stump. I'll go and I'll take about a little handful and I'll stick it in the fork of the tree. I'll give a little speech and I'll go about my way. Every time that I have left tobacco or fruits and vegetables, I like to leave like bananas, apples, oranges, something natural to them. Don't like to go and like at least leave like unnatural sugars. I like to stay with the natural sugars. So every time I've done that, we took this picture in November whenever I took Adam into my research area. I left mint chewing tobacco, let it permeate the area, left a real sweet smell. And this next slide is one of the highlights of our night. Another photo of a Bigfoot taken by Adam Holbrook in November 2018 for the Small Town, Illinois documentary. It was taken in the exact same area on the same hillside that the previous photograph of the Bigfoot was taken. This is just the original. This here is the possible photograph taken by him. I had it zoomed in and cleared up by a friend of mine that does computer works with images. We saw the story behind this photograph. Leading up to it, I was showing him this little place, what I call the natural hunter stand. And it's a tree that grows up on the side of the trail, and then it forks the top, and then it wraps around like this, so it makes like a little seat and a little footstool. And I was showing him, I had my back to it like this, and I'm giving him a little bit of an idea of how, a Bigfoot will use this as a vantage point for hunting. And he said, well, move your headlamp around so that way it can help my lens focus. And he was out there with a Nikon camera, a very expensive camera. And I started going like this, moving my headlamp around so that way it helped his lens focus. And then I see these eyes off to my right, off in this little thicket. I'm sitting there watching him, and he says, bring your light back around so that way I can focus my lens. I said, forget that, look over here. And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching these two things. I said, are you seeing the eyes, Adam? And he says, he says faintly, and I said, well, start taking pictures. Go, go, go. And he took approximately 8 to 10 photographs in succession. Flash on, I kicked my light off so that way you could actually get a better look at it, possibly. And then he zoomed in, and he says, I think we got him. Well, while he's sitting there, looking at his camera like this, squinting his eyes, I'm still got my eyes locked on the creature. And the creature here is sitting on the ground up against a tree. And we tried to go and do some different filters so that we could actually get a better look at the creature. No such luck. All we could get was the eyes. But then I see the creature get up and it starts coming at us on all fours like a gorilla would. And it was burying its teeth at us. And I'm seeing in my light, I'm seeing white fangs in the mouth. And I said, I'd cover my ears if I was you. I was packing a 20 gauge shotgun that night. And I put a number 6 shell in there. I had slugs with me in case, but I took those just as a warning shot. I said, I'd cover my ears if I was you. And I pulled the hammer back, pow, and it took off. About that time, he heard 1 or 2 more down the hill from us on our right take off with it. And he's wanting to get out, and I said, don't run, because if you run, it'll instigate the chasing them like any kind of predator. They'll see that as a challenge, and they'll pull you down. So I go and I said, let's just take it real slow, and let's back out of here. And this is just one of the over 100 photographs that really stuck out that we come out of, and this one was the one that got a lot of talk at the gala for the Small Town Illinois documentary. Next slide. This is going to look a little ragtag, but this is just some of the gear that I have used in the past. I've got some of my gear on the table there with my night scope, my digital recorder, my parabolic dish, my flashlights, and my headlamps. What I don't have on there or on the slideshow is that I use hurricane lamps, coal oil lamps, and tiki torches at night. Reason being is that, you know, like Bigfoot being primarily nocturnal, majority of sightings have been seen at night and not in the daytime. A Bigfoot at night would have night vision as good as we do right now in the daytime. So if you've ever looked through a night vision scope and someone shot a light at you, you're blinded and you can't see nothing with that night scope. So that's the reason I started using hurricane lamps with a low burning flame or a tiki torch, because our ancestors was seeing them way before technology, and they were using campfires and torches and coal oil lamps. It doesn't. Some of this here, a Mantis 500 I got at Gander Mountain a couple years ago for $30. My homemade night camera that I had, which is just a $20 recorder and a $1 flashlight from Walmart, I rigged up with some duct tape, and it does its job. The video camera I used to record a lot of my field footage that you can find on my YouTube channel. My digital recorder that I still use, it's sitting right there on my table. Flashlights and lanterns, $30. The digital recorder, if you'd be interested in buying one, you can find them at Target for $40 pop. The homemade parabolic dish that I made in my workshop, just a $10 microphone with a piece of PVC pipe and a funnel, and it did its job. I retired that one and got that one. You could get that one on Amazon for about $40. The night vision scope you could get there at Walmart for around $130. The lights, depending on whatever suits your fancy, you can get them anywhere from 100 lumens to 500 lumens, and the price goes up in the lumens. Top 10 rules to being a good researcher, as told by my friend Ed Brown. Plug him real quick if you ain't checked him out. Big Truth Productions on YouTube, real good buddy of mine. Rule number 10, when in the woods, always have a recorder and always have it running. A lot of people have been out in the woods and they've reported to hearing wood knocks, whoops, howls, whistles that they attribute to Bigfoot, and they had a recorder, but they didn't have it running. As soon as your feet hit the ground and you get out of your ATV or your truck and you go in there, that recorder needs to be in your shirt pocket or strapped to your arm, and it needs to be running until you leave that area. I did a investigation back in June of last year in northern Jackson County outside the town of Ava, and I had recorders running the whole 48 hours that I was there, round the clock. That's the reason that I always say always have the recorder and have it running. Friends of mine, Mike Miller and Mike Feltner, the Ohio Night Stalkers, they've been on television with their reports of their encounters with Bigfoot. They always have recorders running. And they've got a lot of good stuff out of the southwestern side of Ohio. So that's why I say having a digital recorder is one of the most pivotal pieces of equipment that you can have in your bag. Rule number 9, always treat another researcher with respect. Just because something they say is far-fetched to you doesn't mean it couldn't be true. Like I said in my opening statement, all those people that said the earth was flat, it was a straight shot from Spain to China and India, and that the earth was the center of the universe, all those people were proved wrong. And I mean, it sucks to be proved wrong, especially, so that's why I always say keep an open mind. I deal with countless criticism and scrutiny from not only my peers in the Bigfoot community, but locally and people in my own family that doubt everything I do. But still, I go and I don't cuss them out. I don't go and say, well, you're stupid. I take their input just how it is as constructive criticism. I mean, even then, you're going to have your researchers out there that want to think, that they're the expert and that they know everything and they wrote the Bigfoot Bible and that they've always got the answers, and that you've actually stole their ideas. Funny people out there trying to make a name for themselves, and whenever they use people and all that kind of stuff, and then cut their throats when they're done, figuratively. That's the reason I always say treat others with respect, even not just researchers, even skeptics. Skeptics still, with me, I started off as a skeptic. I didn't know what to believe until I had my first face-to-face encounter whenever I was 20 years old. Rule number 8, do your research before conducting an investigation of your own. Learn the wildlife, the terrain, compile reports made from the area, and establish a grid area in which to investigate. Don't go in there half-cocked and just go out in the woods saying, I'm going to find Bigfoot. And like I said, whenever I say grid area, I do it just like what the police do in an investigation when they're hunting for a perp. They're going to set up a grid area of where, the perp has been seen, like he was seen over here in the liquor store, he was seen down here at the Walmart, at the gas station, at the car dealership, and they're going to zero in on that area inside of that square. That's like I always say, I always go and try to, like how I got with my map over here, it doesn't have any pins in it yet, but I go and I set those pins in that area, and then I'll go and I'll pull it up like on Google Earth, and I'll print off a photograph of that area from Google Earth, and then I'll set up a grid, and then I'll focus inside that grid. Especially be sure to learn your wildlife. We got snakes, we got bobcats, we got mountain lions, contrary to popular belief with DNR, we got mountain lions in Williamson County, even here in southern Illinois as a whole. They just turned black bears loose in Polk County about a year ago, a couple pods of black bear, yeah. You just got to know your wildlife. There is things out there besides Bigfoot that can kill you. Learn the terrain. Out here, it's flat. But you go to the Shawnee National Forest, or you go down to Union County along the bluffs, it's going to be straight up and down. We're in coal mine country. You got to watch out for places where there could be air shafts, where you could fall into where the old mines are, old strip pits. They could fall off in, and you're done. Drop-offs, sheer cliffs, like in Fern Cliff. You got to factor in all these things before you go in. That's the reason I say really do your educate yourself before doing anything whenever it comes to Bigfoot. Rule number 7, don't be afraid to think outside the box. If you think that a certain experiment would be a good one to try, do it. You never know what the outcome might be. It's like I did with the apples. I've left recorders out, and I've left little children's toys like little trains. I've took CDs out and I've stuck them on fishing line in the trees, and that makes it like a reflective with the sun. It's going to draw in anywhere from felines to canine wildlife, to deer, even raccoons. It's drawn them in, and I've caught them on camera doing that. There's some people that actually go out. A friend of mine, Baltimore Galvan Jr., that's from B County, Texas, and Southeast Texas. Whenever he goes out, he takes a little a little charcoal cooker with him, and he cooks bacon and hamburgers on that thing. He lets that permeate the area. A lot of the reports of Bigfoot being drawn to a house is usually whenever someone's got the windows open and they're cooking, where there's an apple pie sitting on the windowsill to cool, if they've got, you know, bacon outside, steaks on the grill. That's usually what you'll find. Usually whenever it comes to fruit and vegetables, it's usually like soured apples, soured, you know, whenever the bananas get really browned and everything, they get that smell to them where you can smell them across the house. That's the things you want to look for. There's just the one thing that I don't recommend doing is, you know, regular habituation, leaving food out. Like my friend Ed Brown this last year, he went and he iterated the fact, you know, that if you're leaving food out and you think you're feeding Bigfoot when in fact it's a bear, and you're not able to feed at that certain time because you had to work late and someone's kid gets ate, you know, you don't want that on your shoulder. That's the reason I don't recommend doing regular habituation, you know, like leaving apples out every now and then, scraps, like once a week, once a month, but not like every day. That's just something that that's just a no-no with me. Rule number 6, safety first. Always, always let a group of people know where you're going to be. If you're going to be without phone service, have a first aid, etc. You don't want your family finding you on the next episode of Missing 411. It's like whenever I go out with my grandparents and my mother, I let them know whenever I'm going somewhere, and I tell them I'll check in with you at certain times if I have phone service. I say, you know, if you don't hear from me in 4 to 6 hours, call help. And I tell them where I'll be at. That's where to start looking. I've gone and, the reason I say have first aid, I've made that mistake before. I've been out camping and I've almost cut this finger off and had been rushed to Harrisburg Medical Center. And I've almost, and profuse bleeding. And I didn't have first aid with me being stupid. You always want to have your battle plan, so let people know where you're going to be at, and especially always have plenty of water, especially, like, for example, last 2 days, it's hotter than blazes out. You need to be fully hydrated and keep a hydration pack with your bottle of water or canteen. Just always have extra precautions. Rule number 5, this is especially endorsed by my colleague Baltimore Galvan Jr. Carry a pencil, pen, and paper with you at all times. Documentation is key in field research. Document weather, season, time, description, what you were doing when you found the evidence, what was, and especially I forgot to throw in there, leading up to the encounter, what was going on during the encounter, and afterwards. Say I put down on there, had an encounter with Bigfoot before a storm rolled in at 4:58 p.m. in the fall, and the temperature was approximately 50 degrees. You never know, a person may have better luck finding a Bigfoot with all those important details. That's the reason we always say carry a pen and paper with you, and especially a camera. Whenever it comes to documentation, I always have in my backpack, I have a tape measure. Just a regular tape measure you could find at Dollar Tree. And I take that, always have a camera with me, my cell phone that I always do a lot with. And I always document every little thing, whether it's arches, tree structures, footprints, possible hair. I always measure the length of the hair, write down little notes in my journal of what, like little details like what's it smell like, etc., etc. Rule number 4, be critical of evidence that you find. Rule out nature, wildlife, and human involvement when you're preparing to present evidence to the public, and be prepared for ridicule if and when it comes. It's coming, no matter what you put out there. Like I said, ever since I founded the Southern Illinois Monster Hunters in 2015, while we still do take in all reports handed to us and we don't turn any of them away, whether it's Bigfoot, werewolf, UFO, paranormal, I don't turn them all away. You got all these people out there like BFRO, if it's got any kind of thing in it regarding what they call woo, which is a supernatural side of Bigfoot, they turn it away. Whenever you're presenting evidence, always rule out nature, wildlife, and human involvement. Whenever I say nature, I mean like storms breaking off the tops of trees and them landing in certain ways. Whether it is like disease in the trees with wildlife, whether it's animals, you know, scraping on trees like how a buck will go and rub up against a tree, a barrel scratches back on a tree, cattle rush up against a tree, scratch an itch, it'll leave hair. And human involvement, always check, you know, for foot tracks, tire tracks, stuff like that, even trash, because I found in my research humans are one of the most clumsiest animals whenever it comes to being in the woods, because they're more worried about staying hidden, but they're not worried about, you know, hiding all kinds of evidence that they actually were there. Rule number 3, make sure that your gear is prepped and up to date. When preparing for prolonged investigation in the field, have plenty of batteries, plenty of gasoline for vehicles, and plenty of food rations to sustain you and those with you. I've been out several times, and other people I know that have been out, batteries gone dead in their camera. They thought they had them all charged. I at least keep, because I use in my cameras, I use AAAs. I always keep AAA batteries, at least 3 or 4 packs from Dollar Tree in my backpack. So that way, and also especially extra SD cards. Those SD cards will fill up pretty quick in your camera. You want to be able to swap those out, put them in your backpack, pull another one out, put one in there, boom, you're ready to go. Gasoline for vehicles. I've been out in a research area and I've had to have people come get me because I've run the gasoline out of the side by side that I've been in. Not only that, always make sure the batteries are fully charged on those things, because you don't want to get out there 5 miles from home in the pouring down rain or the knee-high snow, and you know you have to hoof it out. You don't want, nobody wants that. Have plenty of food rations to sustain you and those with you. You definitely don't want to run out of food. People get cranky, and then they probably start thinking about they're going to try and eat each other. Rule number 2, stay warm in the cold months and hydrated in the hot months. Be mindful of your surroundings, have a set game plan and backup plans in case errors should happen. 9 times out of 10, nothing will go wrong, but you always got that 1% you got to worry about. Like I said, I've made the mistake in the cold months of my first camp out that I had back in 2015, 2016. Yeah, 2015. Made the mistake of going out camping in a summer sleeping bag, real thin bag, and I didn't bring cover all with me because I doubted it was going to get cold, and we almost froze to death that night in 30-degree weather. Especially in the hot months, dress accordingly. You don't want to end up in the hospital for heat stroke or heat exhaustion or dehydration. Always be mindful of your surroundings. People die all the time, especially outside bigfooting. Always be mindful of your surroundings. A good friend of mine here this past year, Charles Gill, passed away. He fell at Ferncliff and he died of his injuries. Always be mindful of your surroundings. That's one detail that I stress to the highest extent. And always have a set game plan. Say, you know, have like a little map or details. You like, no, I'm going to be saying, for example, I'm going on Round Bluff and Ferncliff. If you don't hear from me by, you know, I leave at 8 o'clock. If you don't hear from me by at least 11, call help. Something's happened. And always have a backup plan in case error should happen, which is why I'm always saying have extra batteries, extra food, extra clothes, extra sleeping bags, blankets for the cold months, and always dress accordingly. And rule number 1, when turning in a report or telling about your encounter or encounters, go to someone you can trust. Or a well-trusted local organization. Every little piece of possible evidence in every encounter is instrumental in the quest to prove that Bigfoot exists. It's like I said, whenever I started the Southern Illinois Monster Hunters, I started it not only to help me do with what I am passionate about and helping to prove that monsters still exist today in modern day world. They're not just in fairy tales. There's been reports of other kinds of cryptid creatures, even in Kentucky, Missouri, Indiana, and Illinois, all the states that I've investigated. You got to all kinds of other creatures. That's the reason here at Southern Illinois Monster Hunters we don't turn away any kind of report. I just don't stress. I can stress that so much. We're not just all about Bigfoot. We investigate just about everything. We've investigated dogman reports, which is another name for werewolf. We've investigated UFO sightings, paranormal, which is something we rarely do because that stuff follows you home. I don't tangle with that stuff very much. Like I say, always go local whenever it comes to local research. Whether it's paranormal, I recommend you contact the Little Egypt Ghost Society, or you contact the Nightmare Closet, William Mitchum Jr. out of Mount Vernon, or you contact us, and we do all the 618 region. Don't stress any of the details, even the most minuscule detail could prove to be very big playing part in proving that these creatures exist. If you would like to contact the Southern Illinois Monster Hunters, find us on Facebook at Southern Illinois Monster Hunters. Find us on YouTube at SIMH Southern Illinois Monster Hunters, or email us at blimpsimh@gmail.com. That's my personal email. I take in all reports and all. None of them will be turned away. Coming up here in July, plug my conference that I've got going on July 27th, 2019 at Marion Carnegie Library. Starts at 10 a.m. in Marion, Illinois. We got speakers coming in from 3 states. Daniel Joseph Benoit, he is from Waynesboro, Virginia. He's the founder of the ECBRO, the East Coast Bigfoot Researchers Organization. Greg Yost from Jeffersonville, Indiana. He is known as the Indiana Squatch Man. He investigates several cryptids and has actually got photographic evidence of Bigfoot in Indiana of his own, and also have had encounters. Michael Cook with Cook Cryptid Research. Him and Glenn Mink have also had dual encounters in Kentucky. He has Cook Cryptid Research and Uncharted Paracryptid Studies. They're on Facebook. Be sure to check him out. And Glenn Mink, the Squatch Investigator, a good friend of mine, he will be coming up to share some of his encounters and some of his evidence that he has found over the years. Especially on Dally, him and Michael will actually go and talk about what they found. But, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we still got some time, so any questions?
So you're gonna tell them about what you have on the table there?
Yeah, over here on my table, I have a map of the 618 area of Southern Illinois that goes and it stretches from Vandalia all the way down to Alexander County. I have, if you believe to have had an encounter, I've got them classed in A, B, and C with different colored pins. If you believe to have had an encounter with a Bigfoot that fit any one of these classes, take a pin and mark it on this map. And especially if you believe you have, take one of our forms that's right there and fill it out. Take a form from the conference and also all the other lectures that I'll be doing, just like this one, all across Southern Illinois, leading all the way up till September. The picture that's here on my table is also the Patterson Bigfoot that was videotaped by Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin back in 1967 in Bluff Creek, California, one of the most famous Bigfoot photographs ever taken. And also there's all of my gear that I use in the field. And if you want, you can take the flyer, if you've had an encounter that you want to turn in, fill out the form, and then there you can have a business card.
Did we get that to you?
The thing that we filled out?
Yeah, just give it to me at the end of it.
Are you a cryptozoologist?
Cryptozoologist, yeah, cryptozoologist and paranormal investigator.
So what's the parabellum?